everyone, and welcome to part 2 of our Vacuformer machine build. And this time we're going to be building the heat box that's going to house these heating elements right here that we ripped out of Granny's old toaster oven. This is kind of like what I was thinking. So, here's our heat box, and pretend we're looking down upon it like this. And here we have our different heating elements. We had 4, and we had these little plastic ceramic ends on them. So you can see how artistically I've drawn my ceramic ends here. And we remember that there was always 2 of them that were connected by a metal bar to complete the connection. So I figured we put them side by side, and here is the portions that we're gonna have to wire up. Now, in our original toaster oven, the heating elements, both top and bottom, were spaced 4.5 inches apart. So if we have 4.5 between each heating element, that's going to give us a width of over 20, right? Like some kind of like fractional width. So I decided, you know what? Why don't we make this an even 20 right here? And we're going to do that by kind of just shrinking this space right here, right after this heating element. Because if you remember, the further we get away from this heating element, well, there's no other heating element here. It's going to start to cool off, right? So if we do a full 4.5, it might be too cool. Heck, it may not. This is all kind of like theoretical. So I figure, in order to make this even, let's shrink both sides. So here we'll have 3.25 and 3.25 right here. So if you add all these numbers together, you're going to get a width of 20 for our box, right? And 11.75. How did I determine that? Well, that's just the spacing between the mounting edge of the ceramic portion right there and the one down here. And that gives us the 11.75. And I'll show you guys, we're going to lay it out here just to make sure I got this right? That's why you guys are here, to kind of catch any last minute stuff before we get to building this. And here you can see a very fine 3D, super accurate, like not drawing. And you can see where we have our metal connectors, we have them like right here. And so you can see that our box is 20 by the 11.5. Now, I'm not quite sure how high I want to make this. We don't want to make it too tall because then, remember, heat rises. And so the heat's going to want to like hang out up here. We want to deflect that heat down. So we want this to be like not too tall. And then how high should the heating elements be from the bottom edge? Now, this is somewhat anyone's guess. I'm thinking that if we draw like a cone of heat, it would be kind of like something like this, right? Basically. And then there would be some like overlap here. So I'm thinking if we put our plastic, maybe half the, just half the distance, then we're going to be at that magical, like when the heat kind of intermixes. If the heating element gets too close to our plastic, well, you're going to run the risk of it kind of burning through. But if your plastic is too far away, then it's just going to take forever or not even heat up enough. So this is a little bit of a trial and error, type of situation. So you can see here that with our bars, it's kind of mimicked here. These are connected, and you can see this looped wire right there, and that's going to be our little blues. Remember, we said, okay, the blues are going to reconnect. This one, and this one are the 3 that we're going to have to elongate to meet up with our power situation. Now we're going to build our main box out of this roof flashing. And as you can see, it's stiff enough, but flexible enough that's easy to bend. So you don't need specialized bending machines and tools or anything like that. So if you have 2 blocks of wood, you're going to be pretty good. So this is a 14-inch by a roll of 10 feet. So I'm thinking that's going to be enough. Unless we make a lot of mistakes, then I'll have to buy another one. The 11.75, so how did we get that? The wing nut portion is going to sit basically on the outside of the metal, and this is all going to be on the inside of the metal. So if I measure from this little wing nut right here, the bottom of the wing nut right there to the bottom of the wing nut there, that's where I got my 11.75. Okay, I know when I let go of this, it's gonna like freak out, right? It's just gonna go. That got big real quick. I think I said that I was gonna mount the heating elements 2 1/4 inches from the bottom. I'm cheating here. Yes. All right, 2 1/4 inches. So let's just kind of visualize what that would look like. Sometimes that helps me. And people, since we're measuring, got to get the eyeballs on. Got to get the eyeballs. You can see kind of my mark right there. And I'll kind of make this big. We'll erase it later. So what would make sense? I think 6 is too tall, because I want that heat being deflected almost immediately down. I mean, I'm almost wanting to make it 4 inches. It's always best to make it taller and then shave off as you need than too short and then like, uh-oh, now you can't add. So we'll do it 5. We're going to add up all the, the 20 plus 11 plus 20 plus 11.75 and then do a cut of that length all the way down. So we have a giant kind of strip, right? And then we're going to mold the strip into a box formation. What we want to do now is find out what our perimeter is. As you can see from my amazing math here, we got our 220 sides, and then we have our 11.75 and 11.75, and that's the number it gives us, and that is 63.5. Now, what I'm going to do is add an additional inch to give us like a flap that we then bend over, and seam together. You can see my very faint little black marks, and I'm just going to like do this and line it up and get it mostly straight. So you see I'm just kind of connecting little dots here using our block of wood. So definitely not the easiest way to do it with this, but I think I got to the last one. So I think I have way more here than I need. And you can see how easy this thing is to cut. I mean, I am just like cruising through. It's like running away. It's like, I know what you're going to do with me. It just jumped off the table. So I'm going to make marks as to where the bends have to happen. And then we can just use a block of wood and just boom, 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 get the bends out of the way. And I go boom, boom, boom as if like it's going to be so easy. But we'll figure it out. So I'm going to take the corner here and just measure out 11.75. Which is right about here. All right, and I'm going to remeasure one more time, which is like super rare. So screenshot this. This never happens. I am not a remeasurer. Heck, I'm usually not even a measurer. We just kind of go for it like, oh, that looks about right. That looks about 11-ish.75. So that is 20. So I'm going to mark it. There we go. So we have our 11.75. We have our 20. We're going to move back to the 11.75. All right. And then we have one more 20, which this does not look right. It kind of looks like I'm running out. This looks deceptively not enough. Let's just go for it. Let's see what happens. So start over. I hope not. I swear I measured. Oh, it is. It is right. Look at me. I'm like doubting myself, as I should a lot of the time. I ain't gonna lie. So we know now all the bends that we have to make. And you can see that I have this little tiny bit left over. And I figure we can make a flap and it'll seem kind of, rather than having like two sharp ends coming together like that, if we go like that and then seam it over, it'll be prettier. Prettier. All right, so let's start bending this. Just a little like clamp it just to kind of get it almost there, and then we'll tighten as we need. So I'm going to start by bending this up like that. And then I'm going to use another piece. Oh, here we go. And do this. Actually, that is looking pretty good. Look at that. See, that's pretty sharp right there. I'm going to do the same thing over here. I kind of like the method we use. I think I'm going to stick with it. So I'm going to put our thing here, and you can see the line right there. Lightly clamp this wood situation here. There we go. You can see our mark here, and you can see it's a pretty sharp cut, you know, just using blocks of wood, no dedicated metal cutting tools or metal fabrication tools quite yet. And that was kind of the objective, you know, trying to find ways of doing this that don't require, you know, yeah, we're going to build a cheap vacuum form for right around $100, but you got to go and buy $750 worth of tools to do it. Doesn't make much sense, right? You know? All right. Okay, I think we got all of our bends, and we can try and start putting this snake together here. So you can see that as is, even if we were to pop rivet this flap situation over here, you still got like chubby checker going on. Hey baby, let's do the twist. Right, so we're gonna de-chubby checker this just a little bit. Or I'm trying to think, add structure first, or probably drill out what we need to drill out while it's floppy, because then I can kind of put it in any orientation we want. So if this is our 20-inch piece right here, we're going to space out 4.5 inches apart our heating element situation. Our first one, we said from the bend, which is like right there, we want 3.25. Right here. And then the rest, 4.5, 4.5, 4.5, 3.25. Here is 3.25 from here. And now we need this to be 2.5 inches up to be our center point. Or 2.25, 2.25. X marks the spot right there. From here now we want 4.5. It always looks like it's gonna be wrong. Like I'm gonna like run out, you know, it just never looks right to my eyes. And we need it to be 2.25. Marks this spot. So we got 2 heating elements positioned. And then 2.25. There we go. Now theoretically, this should be about 3.25, give or take. And yeah, it's actually right on the money. Guys, look at my bendy skills. Got some bendy skills. So we're going to repeat the same on our other 20-inch side right here. So we have our heating elements kind of marked up, and we could start cutting them out, cutting out the holes for them. That way it's done. Like, you know, we can manipulate this, and then the last thing we'll do is add our square structure. This is the side that is fixed. So we're going to slip it in from this side because obviously we got this kind of bar in the way. So I'm going to focus on this a little bit. So in order to get this in, we need to cut this like wing nut outer shape. I kept these. We can use these as little templates like that. So as long as we cut these little holes, these little wing nut holes, we're good to go. So here's our template. I'm going to go ahead and use that. So a lot of that figuring out just got done for us. Woohoo! That's why I'm like, do not throw anything away, like ever. So I think we have all of our markings. Now we have to figure out a way to cut this thing. This one did leave just a little bit of a barb. All right, guys, looks like we got 4 holes on this side, and we're gonna go ahead and do the 4 here. It looks like we got a groove now. We got a system that works. If you don't have a step, what I was using was a 1/2-inch drill bit. Did the trick, leaves a little more burrs to be cleaned out, but you can see that this diamond type tip here is the perfect one to just kind of, you know, round out that shape. Woo! And that's looking, you know, pretty spot on. You know, like they mostly will line up. Mostly. This cuff right here is actually larger in diameter than this little cylindrical portion here that's got the wing nuts. So the template we used had this in mind, not this big old cuff. So the big old cuff is going to have to go in through one side, but then stop at the other. He's not going to have to go in through this side. So these holes are going to be a lot more accurate. So that's the only issue with the template, is that it didn't account for the large cuff that's got to go in through the one side. All right, so you see how that one fits. Let's see what we can do to kind of like frame this up. I actually cut these with a Dremel tool. And I hand cut them. So does it mean that this is going to join up perfectly? No. You know, but we don't need it to. We don't need those perfectly like mitered or welded corners. We're not going to be doing any welding. So this is just to kind of hold a basic structure, because where it's going to get rigid and not move around anymore is once we attach it to the bottom. Then it ain't going to go anywhere. So the idea for me is to kind of put these on the outsides like this. I kind of had the foresight, which is like, you know, super, super rare these days. We're going to have our heating elements here, and this entire structure is going to get really, really hot, you know? So I thought, is there a way maybe we can build a heat sink, like an outer cover, if you will? I'm thinking that I'm going to make another loop-de-loop, just like we did, bending it appropriately and attaching it to the outside of this C channel here, thus creating an air pocket up in here, right? So the heat has somewhere to kind of escape. And it'll also act as a way to kind of cover up all of our wiring. But I figure we'll put that on a little bit later, because I kind of want to keep the wiring exposed for now just to make sure everything works, right? You know, and then once we figure the electronics all work, then we can put our heat sink around. And I think that'll make kind of like a nice covering. If you do want to create some kind of heat sink, you're going to have this poking out along with this. So you're going to have to measure the width of this and make sure you buy a channel that can accommodate this width. Because if you buy a channel that's too thin, now these are going to be like all up hitting, you know, your heat sink and all that kind of stuff. So the 3/4 is probably the minimum you want to go. If you find an inch, heck, that is even better. Okay, I'm going to keep going and drill up the other side. Might as well, right, people? So we have our little hole there and there. And all I'm going to do is use a Sharpie and mark the holes where we have them. I'm walking my fingers as not to move anything. And you can see maybe very faintly, here's a dot right there. We can go ahead and drill these. Now, of course, we don't have our heat sink out here. So this looks kind of ridiculous, kind of going in like this, but at least it starts to give us our structure. I'm finding that these 1 1/4 inch bolts are pretty perfect. I'm not going to lie. And this already, you know, gives this edging right here a lot more rigidity. And I have everything hand tight for now. We'll go in and make it regular tightness, you know, a little bit later on. I'm going to go ahead and drill a couple holes, probably 3 holes in this thing. And let's get all of our drilling done, and then we can put it on here in one fell swoop. So you can see that now we have more structure. Imagine the heating elements are all up in here, and we need that heat to go down. Well, if we leave the top open, well, heat rises. It's just gonna like escape. So we need to like, you know, contain this heat. We're gonna go ahead and seal this up like this. So I'm gonna try and square it up as best as possible, and we can start drilling our holes. I actually cut my pieces slightly short so you can see that there's a little space going on. That way it allows us to square it up the way we want. If, you know, you're bothered and this is ugly, you can always buy a corner bracket. That'll also help you get, you know, everything really squared up. So I'm getting this as perfect as is acceptable to Rachel, which is not very perfect at all. Let's see if I can do both together. But I could. And so what I'm going to do is like drill and attach. So that way you don't drill all these holes, and then if it shifts, then it's such a pain. So we can start anchoring this down as we work. This is going to be kind of annoying, and it's going to be a lot of like drill and flip. I'm going to put it, you know, kind of lightly. So everything is kind of like finger tight, because we do want to get this as flat as possible. Come on, muscles. All right. So I think because I did the drill and attach, I got a nice flat, like there's nothing like no gaps or anything where air can escape. So I think I will continue using that technique, although it is kind of, you know, kind of tedious. Yeah. Get one of those nuts that are magnetically repelled to the screw. It happens. So here we see we have the bigger holes, and here we have kind of the smaller holes. So that means that the heating elements have to come in through this direction and then go out through this direction. All right. Let's get this cup in here. Oh, you stuck. There we go. It totally worked. Yes. One of the things we can do is put a tiny little screw just on the plate so the plate doesn't back off on each of these right here. So they're not really going to fall back in because they're anchored on the other side, so they can't go back that way. And because the hole on this side is smaller, the cuff blocks it, so they can't go this way either. So they can't go this way or this way. They're pretty much stuck in place. I think we nailed out a bunch of things a little bit pro looking, you know, way more pro than the usual things that I come up with. I will see you soon for vacuum box building. Have a great weekend, guys. Thanks for joining me.